My name is Elena Ward, and this is my story. I was born and raised in Cleveland, America, in a house that always seemed older than time itself. The walls groaned when the wind blew too hard, and the paint peeled in strips like tired skin. In winter, the cold crept in through the cracks, finding every corner, whispering against my blanket as I tried to sleep. Our roof leaked when it rained, and my father's favorite solution was to place buckets in every room and say, "We'll fix it next month." Next month never came. That house was my whole world for many years, a world of small rooms, heavy silence, and endless lectures. My parents, Patricia and Leonard Ward, were the kind of people who loved control more than comfort. They often said things like, "We gave you everything, Elena. Without us, you'd be nothing." I grew up believing that love had to come with guilt attached. Whenever I succeeded at something, they took credit. Whenever I failed, they blamed me for wasting their effort. As a little girl, I wanted nothing more than to make them proud. I washed dishes until my fingers ached, helped my mother with her endless list of chores, and stayed quiet whenever my father grew angry over bills or broken things. But even as a child, I could feel that our house was not just old, it was stuck. The air itself felt heavy, as though dreams couldn't breathe inside it. When I turned 16, I began working part-time at a local diner near downtown Cleveland. It wasn't much, just a few hours after school, refilling coffee and cleaning tables, but it gave me my first taste of something my parents didn't control: money. My first paycheck was $83, and I remember holding that small envelope like it was made of gold. My parents thought it was a waste of time. My mother said, "You don't need to work. Focus on finding a good husband. That's how life works." But I wanted to earn, to build, to belong to myself. By the time I turned 20, I was still living in that same house, though now the cracks had widened and the walls had grown thinner. I would lie awake at night, hearing my parents argue about money. My father blamed the economy. My mother blamed him. Both of them blamed life. I had begun saving every dollar I could, hiding it away in a small tin box under my bed. Sometimes I felt guilty about it, as if I were keeping secrets from them. But deep down, I knew I wasn't saving against poverty. I was saving against them. That year, I found a job at a small coffee shop in Columbus, a few hours away. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The owner, Mr. Harper, was kind and fair. The first employer I'd ever met who said thank you and meant it. I rented a tiny apartment near the shop, just one bedroom, a kitchen that could barely fit two people, and a window that looked out onto a brick wall. But to me, it was freedom. My parents didn't approve, of course. My mother called every night, her voice sharp. "You're wasting your youth. Come home, Elena. This isn't what we raised you for." My father said nothing, but his silence was heavier than her words. I stayed. That year, I started a side project, an online shop selling handmade candles and simple home decor. It began as a hobby, something to calm my mind after long shifts at the cafe. I made the candles myself, lavender, vanilla, rosewood, and posted pictures on social media. My first sale came from a woman in Portland who bought 2 candles for $24. I remember dancing around my apartment, holding my phone like it was a trophy. Soon, small orders started trickling in. One week, I made $47 in profit. The next, $62. I began staying up late into the night, melting wax, printing labels, and writing thank you notes by hand. My fingers were always covered in wax and ink, but I didn't care. For the first time, I felt like I was building something of my own, brick by invisible brick. My parents didn't understand. When I told them about the business, my mother laughed. "Candles? You think people will buy that? Stop wasting time, Elena.
Get a real job."
My father agreed. "You work too much," he said. "Why work so hard when one day this house will be yours?" I smiled and said nothing. Inside, a thought grew quietly. I don't want her house. I want my own. Years passed and my business grew. I moved back to Cleveland, but not into my parents' house. I found a small studio apartment and continued to work both jobs. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning, work at the coffee shop until noon, and spend the rest of the day packing candles and answering customer emails. My savings grew slowly, but steadily. By 27, I had more than $120,000 tucked away in the bank, money I had earned with my own two hands. Sometimes I visited my parents. The old house looked worse each time. The roof sagged more, the paint flaked off in larger pieces, and the air felt stale. My mother still clung to her pride. She dressed as though we were wealthy, wore cheap jewelry that pretended to be gold, and told neighbors about how successful her daughter was, as if she had made me that way. My father still complained about taxes and politicians, about how unfair life was. And every time I visited, they reminded me, one day, all this will be yours. But every visit reminded me of something else. I didn't want their world. I wanted my own foundation, one I could trust not to collapse beneath me. So, I began to dream of building something new, a house that belonged entirely to me. Not just a physical place, but a symbol. A house that didn't echo with blame or fear. A house where love could exist without conditions. At night, when I couldn't sleep, I would sketch the house in my notebook. A 2-story home with large windows that opened to sunlight, a white porch swing, and a garden filled with lavender. I didn't tell anyone about this dream. It was too fragile, too precious. My parents would have mocked it, said it was impossible. But I knew better. I had seen impossible things become real, like a $24 sale that became a business, or a shy girl who learned how to stand on her own 2 feet. The last time I visited my childhood home before leaving for good, I stood outside for a moment. The porch steps creaked under my feet just like they always had. My father sat inside, watching TV with the volume too high. My mother was in the kitchen, yelling at him for something small. It was all so familiar, and suddenly, it felt like a memory that no longer belonged to me. I looked at the cracked windows, the peeling door, the house that had once seemed like the center of the universe, and I realized something simple and true. That house had raised me, but it did not define me. I walked away that day with my suitcase in one hand and my car keys in the other. Behind me, the wind rattled the windows of the old Ward house, as if trying to speak one last time. But I didn't turn back. I had already decided. My life, my future, would be built on new ground. And though I didn't know it yet, the story of that decision was only just beginning. By the time I turned 27, my little candle shop had become something I could finally call a business. What had started as a small idea in my 1-bedroom apartment had grown into a proper studio space in Nashville, Tennessee. It wasn't fancy, just 2 wide rooms in an old brick building downtown, but to me, it felt like the world had opened up. Every morning, I would unlock the glass door, flip the closed sign to open, and breathe in the smell of wax, coffee, and wood polish. My 2 employees, Naomi and Grace, would arrive soon after. Naomi was quiet and patient, always humming while she wrapped each candle in soft brown paper. Grace was the opposite, bold and chatty, full of marketing ideas and endless energy. Together, we made a small team that felt more like a family than anything I had ever known. We worked long hours, filling boxes, answering customer messages, and testing new scents. I watched the numbers grow every month, first a few $100s, then a few thousand. There were weeks when the profits reached $11,000, and once even $18,000. I never told my parents how much I was earning. They still believed I was playing at business, as my mother liked to say. It was easier to let them think I was scraping by than to explain that I was quietly building something real. Even with the success, I didn't change my lifestyle. I still wore the same old jeans, still drove my used car, still packed my lunches. Every dollar I earned, I treated like a small piece of freedom. I saved and saved until one day, my bank account showed a number I had never dreamed of seeing, $350,000. I remember staring at it in disbelief, my hands trembling slightly. Meanwhile, my parents' house, the one I had grown up in, was falling apart. The roof leaked, the paint peeled, and the stairs creaked like old bones. My father had stopped working years ago after a knee injury, and my mother's small cleaning jobs barely kept them afloat. Whenever I visited, They complained about bills, repairs, and how unfair life had been. I listened quietly, offering help here and there, but they always refused my money. "We're not beggars," my father would snap, his pride louder than his gratitude. Then, one night, a storm hit Cleveland. I got a call from my mother, crying. Part of the ceiling had collapsed in the kitchen. No one was hurt, but she sounded broken, like the house itself had finally given up. That night, I lay awake in my Nashville apartment and made a decision that would change everything. I was going to build them a new house, or at least that's what I told myself at the time. In truth, I wanted to build myself a new life. A week later, I called a real estate agent in Charlotte, North Carolina, a city I had always loved for its calm streets and green spaces. I wanted a piece of land in a safe, quiet area, not too far from downtown, but far enough to hear birds instead of traffic. When the agent showed me a plot surrounded by tall oak trees and open skies, I felt something in me click. It was perfect. The land cost $95,000 and I paid in full. Then came the harder part, finding a builder I could trust. After weeks of searching, I found Mason Construction, run by a patient man named Robert Mason who listened instead of talking over me. I told him exactly what I wanted: a bright, two-story house with wide windows, a kitchen that caught the morning light, and a porch with a swing. The entire project, land, construction, taxes, and the small things people forget, came to about $420,000. I paid $220,000 from my savings and took out a mortgage for the rest. The day I signed the papers, I met with my lawyer, a calm woman named Victoria Clark. She wore glasses and spoke in that measured tone lawyers use when they know their client doesn't quite believe how serious the moment is. "You understand, Elena," she said, sliding the papers toward me. "This property is legally yours. Only yours. Your parents' names will not appear anywhere." I nodded, though my hand shook slightly as I picked up the pen. "I understand," I said. "It's mine." And I meant it. For the first time in my life, something of value, something solid, belonged entirely to me. When the house was finished, I invited my parents to see it. They didn't know I had been working on it for months. The drive from Cleveland to Charlotte took them nearly 8 hours, and when they arrived, I was waiting on the new porch, the swing gently swaying in the breeze. My mother gasped the moment she saw it. "Elena," she whispered, pressing her hand to her chest. "You built our new house." My father walked in with a proud grin, running his hands over the smooth banister. "Look at this place," he said. Our daughter finally came to her senses. I smiled, swallowing the truth. "Yes," I said softly. "This house is for you. For us." They moved in a month later. My mother insisted on choosing the curtains. My father picked out a large leather armchair that didn't match anything, but made him happy. They filled the house with old furniture from the Cleveland home, mixing the past with the new. I let them. It made them feel like they belonged there, and in a way, I wanted them to. But the deed, the mortgage, the insurance, all of it was in my name. Only mine. I told no one, not even my closest friends. In those first few months, everything seemed perfect. My parents were happier than I'd seen them in years. My business continued to grow. I started spending weekends in Charlotte, enjoying the peace of the house I had built from scratch. When I sat on the porch swing at sunset, I felt like I had done something good, not just for myself, but for my family. Still, there were small cracks I tried not to see. My mother sometimes referred to the house as hers, correcting me when I said mine. She'd invite neighbors over and proudly say, "This is the house we built." My father started telling people he had chosen the design, even though he hadn't seen a single blueprint. I told myself it didn't matter. They were my parents. They deserved to feel proud. But deep down, I knew pride could turn dangerous in our family. Then one evening, while I was helping my mother organize the pantry, she mentioned something that made me pause. "Your father and I were talking," she said, stacking jars on a shelf. "When we're gone, you'll inherit everything here. You won't have to worry about money." I looked at her, confused. When we're gone, the house was already mine. I opened my mouth to tell her the truth, but something stopped me. Maybe it was pity. Maybe it was fear of how she'd react. So I smiled instead and said, "That's very kind of you, Mama." She smiled back, completely unaware. And in that moment, I realized something both sad and powerful. They truly believed everything they stood in. The walls, the floor, the air belonged to them. I didn't know it then, but that misunderstanding would grow into a storm that would tear us apart. Because while they believed they owned my house, I believed I had finally built my freedom. Neither of us could see how soon those beliefs would collide, and how, when they did, it would change everything. Meeting Daniel Hayes changed the entire rhythm of my life. I met him at a business conference in Denver, a place I had only traveled to because a friend convinced me that I needed a break from candle wax and spreadsheets. I didn't expect to meet anyone there, especially not someone who would eventually see the real me, the version hidden behind my quiet independence and carefully built success. Daniel wasn't like the men I'd met before. He didn't talk about money, status, or possessions. He was a high school literature teacher who spent his evenings reading novels and his weekends volunteering at a local library. His kindness was disarming. While other men tried to impress me with expensive dinners or fancy talk, Daniel impressed me by listening. When he asked me questions, he really wanted to hear my answers. Our first date was simple, a walk around a small park in Boulder, followed by hot chocolate from a nearby cafe. We sat on a bench as the sun set behind the mountains, and he asked, "Are your parents proud of what you've built?" I laughed softly. "They like the house," I said. "They think it's theirs. That's enough for now." He looked at me, puzzled but gentle. "You don't sound angry," he said. "I used to be," I admitted. "Now I just accept that some people only understand love when it comes with control." Daniel nodded, and that was it. He didn't press further. He respected the unspoken walls I had built around my heart. Over the next 2 years, we grew inseparable. He saw me through late nights at work, stressful audits, and every candle spill disaster I could possibly have. He didn't see my business as competition for his masculinity, and he never made me feel like I had to shrink to fit inside someone else's world. For once, I was with someone who didn't want to own me. He simply wanted to stand beside me. When he proposed, it wasn't with a grand gesture or an expensive diamond. He took me to the Nashville Botanical Gardens, where we had our first real conversation about our future, and he handed me a ring wrapped in a white handkerchief. The diamond was small, but the moment was perfect. We were married in Savannah, Georgia, in a small garden filled with fairy lights. My dress was simple, a white lace gown that brushed the ground. The guest list was short, a few close friends, Daniel's parents, and of course, my own. My parents sat in the front row like royalty, dressed in their finest clothes. My mother wept dramatically during the vows. My father smiled as though he were giving away a piece of property instead of a daughter. During the reception, my father gave a long speech about how we raised such a successful daughter, making it sound as if he had personally built my company brick by brick. I smiled through it, holding Daniel's hand under the table. I didn't want a scene. I told myself that after the wedding, after the celebration, things would settle. I had no idea that the real storm was still waiting. For our honeymoon, Daniel planned something modest but beautiful, a week in Miami, then a promise that one day, when we'd saved another $10,000, we'd travel to Europe together. I didn't care where we went. I just wanted to be with him. The first few days in Miami were peaceful. We walked along the beach, watched the sun sink into the ocean, and talked about everything and nothing. For the first time in years, I felt entirely free. No business calls, no family drama, no expectations pressing on my shoulders. Then, on the 4th night, my phone rang. The screen flashed my mother's name. At first, I ignored it, but when it rang again and again, I finally picked up. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked. Her voice was sharp and cold. "Where are you now?" "Miami," I said slowly. "On my honeymoon. Is everything okay?" "Come to a video call with us," she demanded. "Turn on the camera. Your father and I need to speak with you. And with your husband." Something in her tone made my stomach twist. I told Daniel, and though he looked uneasy, he agreed to join me. We sat on the bed together, laptop between us, and joined the call. My parents appeared on the screen, sitting in my living room, my house, though they didn't know it. They looked serious, almost regal, as though they were about to conduct some formal family business. My father leaned forward. "Daniel," he began, his voice heavy with authority. "Now that you are married to our daughter, we want to make something clear." Daniel blinked, unsure. "Of course, sir," he said politely. My father continued. "We have given Elena everything. We raised her, provided for her, made her who she is. We are not asking for much. We want $300,000 from you, a gift to show respect to the family that raised your wife." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Daniel looked at me, shocked. "Sir," he said quietly, "I don't have $300,000. I'm a teacher. I can't give you that kind of money." My mother leaned closer to the camera, her eyes hard. "Then divorce her," she said. "Divorce her and leave. Elena will come back to us. We'll evict her from all our property. She has nothing without us. She will live with us again. Divorce him and come with us. We have raised you." Her words sliced through me. For a second, I couldn't even respond. They weren't just trying to control me, they were trying to sell me. Daniel squeezed my hand under the blanket. "Elena," he whispered, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know they would do this. I can't pay that, and I won't buy anyone's love." I looked at him, then back at the screen. My parents sat there, confident and unashamed, as though they had every right to demand it. Something inside me, something that had been silent for years, rose up. It was calm, not angry. Strong, not loud. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I will not divorce my husband. And I will not let you sell me for $300,000. My mother's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand, Elena," she said. "If you don't do this, we will throw you out of our house and take everything. You'll have nothing." That was it. The moment everything turned. I smiled, a small, quiet smile. "You can't throw me out," I said, "because that house isn't yours. It's mine. I paid for it. I signed the papers. All the property you think is yours is actually in my name. Every room, every wall, every inch." Their faces froze. My father's mouth opened slightly. My mother blinked, as if the floor had shifted under her. "What do you mean, your house?" my father asked. Without another word, I opened my email and shared the deed on screen. Across the top, in bold letters, it read, "Owner, Elena Marie Ward." "I bought the land," I said. "I paid the builder. I made every payment. I let you move in because I wanted you to have comfort. I told you it was your house because I loved you, but legally, it has always been mine." My mother's face turned red. "You tricked us," she hissed. "No," I said softly. "I protected myself." For the first time in my life, they had no words. My father looked away. My mother's lips trembled. "If you try to ruin my marriage," I said, "you will lose not just me, but this house too. I am not your property, and neither is my husband." Silence hung between us, thick and heavy. Then, without waiting for a response, I ended the call. Daniel and I sat in the quiet of that Miami hotel room, the sound of waves faint in the background. He wrapped his arm around me, and I felt something inside me finally shift. It wasn't the sound of breaking. It was the sound of becoming whole. When Daniel and I came back to Cleveland, the silence inside the house felt different, heavier, colder. My parents were waiting in the living room, their faces hard as stone. My father sat with his arms crossed, and my mother's eyes were filled with disappointment rather than shame. "So," my father said slowly, "you think you can throw us out?" I took a seat across from them, Daniel quietly beside me. "No," I said. "I don't want to throw you out. But I also won't let you control my life anymore. You try to sell my marriage for $300,000, and I won't pretend that's love." My mother straightened her back. "We raised you, Elena. We gave you everything you ever had. You owe us respect." "I respect you," I said gently. "But respect isn't the same as ownership. I worked for everything I have. I built my business from nothing. I bought this house with my own money. I gave you comfort because I loved you, not because I owed it to you. My father's voice cracked with anger. Without us, you'd be nothing. Don't forget where you came from. For years, those words had made me shrink, but not anymore. I stood up, my hands steady. That's where you're wrong, I said. I'm someone even when you're not proud of me. I am your daughter, but I am also my own person. From my bag, I took out a folder and placed it on the table. Inside were the house papers, mortgage records, and every legal document, all showing one name, Elena Marie Ward. This house, I said, is legally mine. You're living here as my guests. If you want to stay, there will be rules. My mother's eyes widened. Rules? For us? Yes, I said firmly. 3 of them. First, you will respect my husband. Second, you will never again try to trade my life for money. Third, you will stop saying I am nothing without you. My father leaned back, silent, his face pale. And if we don't, he asked. I took a deep breath. Then I'll give you $20,000 to find your own place. You'll have a new start, but not at the cost of my peace. For a moment, no one spoke. The air between us was thick with the weight of truth. Then my mother whispered, "We didn't know, Elena. We thought everything was in our name." "You never asked," I said softly. "You just assumed you owned everything, including me." That night, we all slept under one roof for the last time. The next morning, the house felt emptier, as if it already knew what was coming. 3 weeks later, my parents moved out. They accepted the $20,000, found an apartment downtown, and left without saying much. My father didn't meet my eyes. My mother hugged me stiffly before stepping into the car. I watched them drive away, feeling a strange mix of sorrow and freedom. After they left, the house finally felt like mine. Daniel and I filled it with life. We painted the kitchen a warm cream color, planted roses in the backyard, and turned the spare bedroom into a small library. My business flourished. Within a year, our revenue crossed $900,000, but money no longer defined my happiness.
Peace did.
Sometimes, in the evenings, I sat on the porch swing watching the sun fade beyond the trees. The house glowed in the golden light, and I would think about what owning really meant. It wasn't just about deeds or dollars. It was about having the courage to stand up for yourself, to claim your voice when others tried to silence it. One spring afternoon, my mother came to visit. She stood on the doorstep, her expression softer. "This house is beautiful," she said. "You chose well." "Thank you," I replied. Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "We were afraid you'd forget us if you became independent. We thought control would keep you close. It was wrong." I reached for her hand. "I didn't build this life to leave you behind," I said. "I built it so I could stand beside you." She nodded, tears spilling freely, and for the first time in years, we hugged without pride between us. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was an honest one. And as I watched her leave that evening, I finally understood. What truly belonged to me was not the house, not the money, not even the success. It was myself.